Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com and draft.com, where if you use the promo code BOXES, you will get a free entry to your first draft. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
So did you realize that you messed it up in our next to the last episode, Mike? You messed up the intro. Did you realize it?
What are you talking about?
You said you were Michael. That was the only time I think people can go back and listen to the beginning of like every podcast ever, and you always say Mike. But in the I think it was the Memphis Grizzlies. If you look at the Memphis Grizzlies season preview, Mike says Michael.
Whoa. We didn't do the Memphis Grizzlies. What are you talking about?
Yes, you guys. Yes, we did.
What are you talking about? We didn't. Did you record the Memphis Grizzlies podcast with someone named Michael?
Yeah, Michael did
I don't remember doing that.
That.
I don't remember the Grizzlies. I don't remember the Grizzlies podcast.
So how does it feel, Mike? You messed one up. You're always conscious about not messing it up.
Tyler, why are you trying to always bring me down at the beginning of each one of these podcasts? Always trying to come after me. I think you're just still salty that I won last year's listener league. I think you're still salty about that.
Well, the true test will be the Dynasty League this year. So
that's right. Tyler is putting together a Dynasty League to end all dynasties. And that is over on patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. I think we only have a few spots left, like 1 or 2 spots left. So go over there, check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. We're going to have exclusive content for our subscribers and the people who've already subscribed. They're great. Thank you very much. And they're already getting that exclusive content. But if you want to be involved with that, or you're interested in joining one of our listener leagues, or you want to even join a Slack channel where me and Tyler will be hanging out. I guess we won't be hanging out. We'll be just like virtually online. That's how Slack works. You can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. And I want to give a shout out to one of our new subscribers. This guy just subscribed. It's another Thomas. It's not Tomas from earlier, who was from Iceland. So props to Iceland and all our listeners up in the beautiful land of Iceland. This is a different Thomas. Thomas Schnick, thank you for joining our Patreon and subscribing. You're going to get into one of our listener leagues, either Tyler's super cool Dynasty League or Mike's boring regular 9-cat, probably head-to-head because everybody's demanding it, even though they don't know what they're talking about, redraft league.
Were you waiting for me to say something? Because I had no comment on that.
Fair. Let's talk about we are continuing our 30 teams in more than 30 days series here with the Houston Rockets, another team where we kind of got a feel for them already. They've had some minor changes. Some of those changes I think are pretty impactful to the fantasy world. They did re-sign Clint Capella and Chris Paul.
Ooh, but you want to play a fun game quick?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, the Rockets by average age are the second oldest team in the NBA.
Oh, really?
Do you want to guess who the oldest team is?
Who would be the oldest team? I think that's actually a pretty tough question. Portland?
Ooh, no, Mike, that's not the answer we're looking for today. Portland is actually one of the youngest with an average age of 24.3, which is very young. The Rockets are 28.1, and the average age of the highest team is 28.8.
The Lakers?
Ooh, Mike, good guess. But no, their average age 25.1. You got to think they got a lot of young guys, right? Brandon Ingram.
That's true. Who is it? Who is it?
All right. So one of my guesses would have been the Dallas Mavericks. He's actually third. The team is the oldest. It's Popovich and the Spurs.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That kind of makes sense.
28.8. Yep. So there you go. There's a fun fact. You win a bar bet with your buddies.
Yeah, that is. I'm surprised. I'm surprised Houston Rockets are up there, but maybe I shouldn't be because they did add old man Carmelo Anthony to this team. And former Rookie of the Year, Michael Carter-Williams. I don't know what they were up to this offseason. They also drafted DeAnthony Melton and Vincent Edwards in the second round. Out on this team is Trevor Ariza, who is actually an important fantasy player, and Luke Mahabute, who is came over from.
Wait, what was that?
Mahabute.
No, just no.
Luke Mahabute.
What about your booty?
Mahamabute.
Luke Baamute.
Luke Babamabute.
What team does he play for now, Mike? Come on, this is your redeem yourself question.
Well, he's on the Rockets. I'm looking right at. Or no, he signed with the Clippers.
You just said he left the Rockets, and you're like he's on the Rockets.
This is a rough start to the Houston Rockets. As you can see, once again, a lot of filler needed for this episode because we kind of already know what's going on with the Rockets. We do have a few final questions to ask. So let's knock out the stuff we already know. James Harden, are you picking him number 1 overall?
Yeah, in head-to-head leagues especially, I think I'm going to go for number 1 overall. Just too much goodness.
Yeah, I mean, he's the MVP of the league, and I don't see why he wouldn't just do incredibly similar things that he did last year. They're probably going to be gunning for a title because they almost won it. They were able to take the Golden State Warriors to 7 games and then missed like 72 3-pointers. So I would give Harden the number 1 overall pick, probably in both roto and head-to-head leagues. I could see maybe AD slipping in there in either one of those leagues. I think they're both kind of my 2 top 1 picks.
Well, see, if it's 9-cat roto, which is your preferred,
it is.
Isn't Davis? I mean, okay, they're both amazing. Like,
yeah,
we're splitting hairs here, but Harden's 4.7 turnovers per game are a big detriment in the sense that, I mean, other than Westbrook and maybe LeBron, right? Like, no one else is probably even going to average over 4.
Yeah, that's true. But you're not going to find a guy who scores almost 30 a game and gives you 9 assists and 2 steals. And so, like, he's rare enough to be like, all right, I'll take those turnovers.
I feel like you would be on Anthony Davis. I'm surprised. I'm on Harden still, but I feel like you would be on Anthony Davis.
I am. Anthony Davis is my number 2, if not my number 1.
So I'm surprised. Like, I'm surprised.
I don't know what you're surprised about. I'm on Anthony Davis. I'm always on Anthony Davis. Future Chicago Bull Anthony Davis. Drink if you are playing at home. Let's talk about Chris Paul re-signed. Chris Paul getting older. Got that money now. Tyler, are you worried about Chris Paul's production next year?
So, production, no. But a lot of people are, right?
I think people always get into this mode where once someone's over 30, they're like, all right, this is the year that they fall apart, and that player usually just plays as well as he has, or maybe falls up a little bit here and there. And Chris Paul is 33, right? So is he going to average around 8 to 9 to 10 assists? Probably. Couple steals? Probably. Shoot really good percentages? Yep. Hit 18 points? Probably. Maybe hit an extra 3 in there and get some rebounds? Like, I don't know. What is he going to fall off on? His game isn't Westbrook's game. You know, his game isn't what Derrick Rose was. Chris Paul stops and starts and is an incredibly efficient shooter. I'm not sure why I'd worry about Chris Paul, even not just this season, but even next season. Like, I'm not worried about Chris Paul at all.
So I don't think it's the production that worries people. I think it's the games.
Yeah. Now that is an actual good caveat.
And so he had an 82-game season in the last 5, but the other seasons are 62, 74, 61, 58.
Yes.
And
he's guaranteed to miss 2 straight weeks.
So on totals, if you look at Mark's rankings, you want to guess where Chris Paul is?
Ooh, I'm going to say like 14.
24th.
That's, you know what? That's too low.
Because he's only has him for 63 games.
That's too
Now,
low.
what this doesn't factor in, and I say this to a lot of people, if I'm playing in a 20-team league, a 16-team league, a league with some crazy deep benches that's 14 teams, maybe that's where Chris Paul really should go. Because the options to pick up are not going to be very good at all. And so you're going to be left with 60 to 65 games of really good production from Chris Paul, but then the rest of the games you're not going to have much. But in a shallow, go ahead.
I was going to say point guards drop very, very hard after the first two tiers, and I think Chris Paul, would be in my maybe my tier 1B if I thought he was going to play more than 74 games, and I don't think he's going to play more than 74 games. And so his per game value is higher than his total value. So I would probably enter him into my tier 2, but like a solid, great tier 2.
Well, and here's the thing though, in a shallow league, I mean, if there's going to be somebody real good on the waiver wire, like why not take Chris Paul at his per game value, right? Or pretty close to it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if I can name a point guard who's going to be on the waiver wire, Reggie Jackson. If I can have 15 games of Reggie Jackson and 65 games of Chris Paul, I think I'm pretty happy. But if the point guard on the waiver wire is whoever is the backup for the Kings, Yogi Ferrell is the best player available.
Yogi Ferrell still in the league?
Yeah, right? Him and Frank Mason competing for the backup point guard for the Kings.
The worst fantasy player.
Yeah, but in 20 minutes he is.
Well, sure.
You know what I mean? And that was, I guess, my point. It's like, if I have to have someone playing 20 minutes for the rest of the games of Chris Paul, maybe I'm in on the second round. So let's play it. Let's play. Let's see where Mike would pick Chris Paul. One of my favorite games. You can have Chris Paul or John Wall.
Chris Paul.
Ooh, all right. I'm going Wall there at this point. I just feel like
I don't know. If in a Roto league, I'm going Chris Paul. I think it's an easy decision in a Roto league.
Okay.
Head-to-head league, now I'm having a discussion with you.
Well,
John Wall's got injury issues as well.
I assumed we were talking head-to-head leagues, but all right, that's fine. I
always assume we're talking Roto.
All right, so next point guard on the board, Kyle Lowry.
Chris Paul.
Kemba Walker?
Chris Paul.
All right, Ben Simmons.
Are we counting him as a point guard?
Yeah. He has point guard eligibility in at least the leagues I'm looking at.
In a head-to-head league, I might actually go Ben Simmons.
I actually think I would go Ben Simmons in a head-to-head league. Got to feel good about him staying somewhat healthy. I mean, obviously, anyone can get hurt. But You're talking 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 1.7 steals, and pretty close to a block a game.
Yeah, Chris Paul isn't scoring more than 20 points a game, so you're not getting a huge drop-off with Ben Simmons. The problem is you're getting 0 3-pointers, and Chris Paul hits good threes and is an elite steals guy.
But in a head-to-head league, are you worried about that?
Not if I'm picking Ben Simmons. No, I'm not.
Well, here's my point, right? There's guys on the waiver wire like Wayne Ellington. I stream him in 2 days out of the week, right? He play 2 games every week. He hits like 3 3-pointers a game.
Yeah, I'm worried. Even if unless I'm punting 3-pointers, I am worried about getting a guy who doesn't hit threes in a league where literally all the players hit threes, and you have to have guys hit threes. Yeah, you can stream some threes and make up for it like that. So in that case, when you're doing head-to-head, it's probably less of a detriment. But if you go round 1 not getting a guy who hits threes, and then you get to round 2 and you get a guy who's average at threes, you're not like in the middle of the pack on threes. You are last. Well, everyone else in those top 20 hits like massive threes.
And that's maybe either you're punting threes or you're making a poor team build there.
True. Yeah.
So if you know what you're doing, that's probably not going to happen. I guess my point is I don't feel super bad about picking Ben Simmons because he doesn't hit any threes, because I feel like there's always going to be threes available. And that's a category I think you can make up on relatively quickly if you know that you need to make it up, right? Like I need Klay Thompson in my next pick because he's going to hit 4 threes a game, and then I'm feeling pretty steady.
Yeah, you could definitely make up for it in the next couple rounds with Bradley Beal, Donovan Mitchell if he lasts that long. I've been doing some mock drafts lately, and people are a little bit like Chris Paul. It sounds like people are a little bit out of him because of his age and his injury prone. Blah blah blah. So
I feel like I'm going to own a lot of Chris Paul. I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm going to own a lot of Chris Paul.
I think Chris Paul is in most of the mocks I've been doing, and granted it's pretty early. Chris Paul lasts to the beginning of the second round. So if I'm on the turn, I usually take Chris Paul in the second part of my turn.
I did one on ESPN just the other day, and Chris Paul lasted. I got him with the second to last pick of the second round.
That's not okay. See, that's like people are out on Chris Paul. There's your value for your value pick of the first 2 rounds. Everybody is going to be Chris Paul. You are welcome. Write that down.
Yeah, and there were guys that I mean, like Kyle Lowry was going in front of him. I'm not on board with that at all.
No. I feel like Kawhi Leonard, people avoiding Kawhi Leonard just because we don't know anything about his injury history right now. I get that a little bit, but Chris Paul, I don't know what you're doing.
Well, hasn't Kyle Lowry had some injuries in the last couple of years too?
And so is Kyrie Irving.
And Kyle Lowry's also over 30. Like, I don't get why he got the pass and Chris Paul didn't.
No, I think that's just some bad drafting. So I'd say kind of pay attention to Chris Paul's value. I think it is dropping. I'd say this. We'll talk about Donovan Mitchell in the future, but people are way too high on Donovan Mitchell right now. Way too high.
You and I talked about this actually on a pod before we started the season previews about how we only have one data point from Donovan Mitchell, and it was a great data point. But look at guys like Tyreke Evans, right? He had one amazing season as a rookie, and then he finally had another really good season last year.
Yeah, and I think I'm not as
and I'm not saying he's going to drop like that.
Yeah.
But my point is, we don't know. We don't really know what he is yet.
Yeah. I'm with you, and well, I mean, I don't want to get into that. We talk about that in either our rookie preview or our summer league review. So go check out some of the older podcasts. There's some pretty good value in there. We're also going to be rebroadcasting our top 50 retrospect, which, man, I haven't listened to that since we did it at the end of last season, so I have no idea what we might or might not said. But like listening to stuff from the perspective of the end of last year does help at least me prepare going into this year to just remember what the sentiment was with some of these players in the second half of the season. So yeah, Chris Paul, let's move on and talk about Clint Capella. So I think these are the top 3 guys on this team when it comes to fantasy. Clint Capella re-signed, pretty young, so probably has some room for improvement. But like, are you seeing Clint Capella's stock rising, falling, plateauing? Like, what are you looking at with Clint Capella?
I think for me, his stock is falling in my own personal perception, just because I think some people in the market are really rising him up.
Well, I mean, your stock's staying the same, and other people are buying.
Yeah, so I feel like Clint Capella is kind of what he is at this point. Like, sure, he might get a little bit better, but I think for a big man, sometimes we see that doesn't always happen. And how long we've been saying that about a guy like Jonas Valanciunas, right? He played 28 minutes a game for the first time. Jalen played 27.5 minutes. I don't really see that going super high up, though.
Yeah, do you think, I mean, he is 24. I mean, do you see him approaching 30? And like, even if he approaches 30, like, what more are we getting here? Like a point and a half and a rebound? Like, he's a 2-block, almost 1 steal guy, but only 1 assist. And his free throws are pretty bad.
Yeah, and I think we've seen this from D'Antoni, right? He wants to run that pace and space kind of lineup. And so there's going to be times where they're going small, and we'll talk about this in a minute, I'm sure, but their bench is not looking good.
No. which actually might be good for Clint Capella. He might play a little bit more minutes. He did finish 25th overall in totals last year. If you tell me he's going to finish 25th or above next year, I'd say, okay, probably not.
So
but he's not going to make a huge leap.
All right, where are you picking Capella? Because I think this is interesting. Because I see him sometimes going in that second, third round range, and I don't know, man. I'm out on Capella there, I think.
No, that's too rich for my blood. I think there's just too many good players hanging around the second round. I'd rather have Rudy Gobert. I'd rather have Chris Middleton. I mean, so I guess I got Capella hanging around my third round, maybe even my fourth round.
Yeah, I don't think
what is he doing that Hassan Whiteside isn't doing a round later?
I mean, we talked about that big group of centers a couple pods ago, and I feel like I just maybe rather have one of those guys. Like, I feel like the end of that tier is going to be in like the 65, 70 range. So if you tell me I have to pick Capella at like 40, or I could have a similar center at like 70, 75.
Well, yeah. What if you have to pick Capella at like 35 and you could have a wide open down here in like 65 to 85, we're talking about Steven Adams, where Miles Turner is hanging around. You got Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah, and at 35, I could have someone like Klay Thompson or
like a very
maybe Marc Gasol. People are down on Marc Gasol too a little bit this year, and I'm excited for that.
Name one year people were not down on Marc Gasol.
Yeah, but this year, right? Like he's been a kind of a third round pick staple for us for the last couple of years. I've seen Mr. Gasol slip to the fourth, and I'm more than excited for that.
Yeah, I think I actually just put out if you check out the patreon.com/watchingtheboxes, I did put out a very early Roto top 30, and Marc Gasol's in my top 30.
I'm with you there.
Yeah, I mean, he might fall out of my top 30 now that I'm reevaluating it. I think I made a few mistakes in there. But Marc Gasol can definitely finish in the top 30 this year. And I think a lot of people think he's a has-been, and it's weird.
Well, that team was just so bad last year. I think that had some effect on it.
Yeah, that is true. People do really, really forget. When someone's bad 1 year or gets injured, we talked about this before, you kind of just people completely forget about him. Let's talk about Eric Gordon. I actually think the most interesting thing on this team, so we usually do this question at the beginning, but we're doing it in the middle, is the departure of Trevor Ariza, because that does open up some more minutes for people like Gerald Green, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, and sadly Carmelo Anthony.
Mike, the hate on Carmelo.
Carmelo's terrible. He's absolutely terrible. In fact, I'd like to throw a caveat out there. Maybe if you go back and listen to our Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, we talk about Paul George quite a bit, and we talk about Carmelo leaving the team. And one of the things I think we might have failed to mention or only briefly mention was with Carmelo out of the lineup last year, Paul George's usage went way up. So it is safe to say that Paul George's, which I think we do briefly mention, his value is going to be, I think, a little higher this year. It's hard to gain too many spots when you're in that top 15, but I'm looking for Paul George to have a pretty good year. And
are you taking him over Jimmy Butler yet? Because I am. I'm in on that bandwagon for the first time in a while.
Might be the first year I do that. It's going to be hard to not take buckets due to prideful Bulls reasons, but I mean, if
prideful bullet, I like it.
If Jimmy G buckets is only going to play, 60 some games this year because of his usual late season Thibodeau ran me into the ground injury, then I want Paul George.
I caught a few minutes of the Jump today, and they were discussing the whole Butler Towns feud, and they surmise that they think that Butler might get traded this year too, which that could throw a chasm into fantasy basketball.
I don't know about that. I think the market's out. We'll see. But let's talk about Eric Gordon. So Eric Gordon probably has a little bit of I would say extra playing time. Probably not a whole lot. He played 31 minutes last year, ended up finishing 99th overall in averages. But Eric Gordon is I hit bulk threes and that's about all I do type of player, which is good to get in late rounds when you need a score and some threes in case you have drafted guys who don't hit threes early in the draft. But other than that, like, do you see any I guess improvement on Eric Gordon's playing time or I guess fantasy ranking next season?
No. And I probably will not own him because he averages a steal and block. If you add them together, he averages 1. So
that's not good.
That's not something I want to cook in my kitchen with.
Also, like 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and shoots 42%. Like all those things don't sound terrible, but if you are bad at all of those things, it makes your 18 and 3 3-pointers kind of just a nice thing to have instead of a must-own player.
And I'll say this too, 18 sounds good, but I wouldn't say that that's any lock. He shot a little better from the field than he had in the previous 3 seasons, and that number could go down a little bit. And he got to the line a lot more than he has for the last 3 seasons too. And that number could go down a little bit. And if both those numbers go down a little bit, that 18 is more like 16.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Melo's not going to be happy coming off that bench, Tyler.
So, would you rather have Melo or Gordon? There's a question.
That's actually a pretty legit question. I'd rather have Eric Gordon. I think Melo's pretty bad, and he was not that great in Oklahoma City. And Eric Gordon actually, with the ability to hit 3 threes, has at the very least a streaming value. But in less minutes, he was scoring more than Melo last year, hitting more threes. Yeah, Melo gets more rebounds, but Melo is like the same, does the rest of the stuff that Eric Gordon does, except for Eric Gordon does it a little bit better.
Well, Melo at least is going to get 6 rebounds probably.
Okay.
Which,
like, would I rather have
a
whole extra 3? Or
I'm not saying that's the thing that's going to sway it. I'm just saying
4 extra rebounds.
And here's the most interesting part: is how many minutes is Melo going to play? Because we haven't seen. I mean, Melo averaged 32 minutes a game last season, and that was the first time he had been below 34 and a half in his whole career, bar 1 season.
Yeah, my guess is he is going to play less than that. In fact, I don't think he's going to reach 30 minutes per game.
Is he though? And here's the other reason. Here's the other reason I say it. Who's going to get the big minutes here? Like, these guys got a lot of minutes to give out. I don't think they really want to play Ryan Anderson. In their ideal world, they'd trade Ryan Anderson, but they're paying him too much.
Yeah.
So no one wants to take him on because no one has cap space.
I mean,
they're going to play Gordon. They're going to play Tucker, right?
Well, let me go through these minutes. I think this is a pretty interesting question. Tucker played 28 minutes. Anderson played 26 minutes a game last year. Gerald Green played 23 minutes a game last year. Trevor Ariza's 34 minutes need to go somewhere. I think a little bit goes to Eric Gordon, who still played 31 minutes. And Luke in my booty played 25 minutes. Hell, Joe Johnson played 22 minutes for this team.
And that's what I'm saying. There's minutes open on this team.
But I see it 26, 27, not 32.
Okay, one last question on Carmelo, and then I'll let it die.
Yeah.
In the D'Antoni system, he's probably going to shoot more threes. Yes or no? He shot 6.1 a game last year, which is a crazy amount.
Yes. He will shoot more threes.
And so I would not be surprised to see Carmelo make like 2.5 or 3 threes a game. I mean, honestly, he made 2.2 last year. Like he could be in that Eric Gordon territory.
All right. Are you going to draft Eric Gordon in a standard league? Eric Gordon.
Am I or is somebody?
Is Eric Gordon worth owning in a standard league?
Probably. Someone's going to need points.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think Eric Gordon is worth. Is Carmelo Anthony worth owning in a standard league?
Is he worth it, or will someone own him? Because those may be two.
Someone will 100% own him on name recognition alone. I don't see Carmelo Anthony anything but as a glorified streamer at this point.
I'm probably with you there on the caveat that he plays less than 30 minutes a game. If for some reason we see them running him 32 minutes a game, he could get somewhat interesting. Just the bulk threes. He'd probably score quite a bit.
I mean, he'd get as interesting as Eric Gordon is, and then I'd just still rather have Eric Gordon.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I would rather, if they're playing the same minutes, I'd rather have Carmelo. I feel like he's going to give you more rebounds. The assists are going to be negligible at best, right? Like Gordon might give you a few more, but Carmelo, at least last year, averaged 0.6 and 0.6, which is better than 0.6 and 0.4 that Gordon gave you.
That's technically true. So yeah, we're talking. I mean, essentially, what's kind of messed up is that we're talking about a very, very similar two players. So
yes,
take your pick. If you really like Melo still for some sort of legacy reason, because you live in the Bronx, like.
So, but we can both agree on this. Gordon's going to be the better value because we're saying the same thing, right? If they play the same minutes, they're relatively the same player.
Yeah, Eric Gordon probably won't get drafted in some standard leagues, and he should be, I think.
And you're going to see Melo go in the top 100 in a lot of drafts because people are going to be like, "Ooh, Carmelo Anthony, I know him."
Yeah,
right. And the other guys around are going to be like Kyle Anderson, and guys. Some people are like, "Who's that? I don't even know Kyle Anderson is."
Yeah, I've seen Kyle Anderson not drafted in a mock draft. Now I think everybody might have quit by then, but he was just not drafted.
I'm not surprised. I think Kyle Anderson will be on a lot of my teams this year. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him in that new role in Memphis, but we talked about that.
Definitely. Go check out our Memphis team preview. Any, I guess, deep league hints, tips off the Houston Rockets here? Maybe a little Gerald Green action?
Well, Gerald Green's going to hit some threes, right, if you need threes.
Yeah, he always gets hot at some point in the season, so there's that. Anyone else?
He's very frustrating, too. I'll say that. Like, owning Gerald Green is always a wild ride.
Yes, is Nene gonna play backup center still?
The man I'm more interested in, and I don't think this is going to be great value, but I think he's going to be a top 200 player playing a league that deep, is James Ennis. Just feel like there's going to be minutes for Ennis. They don't really have a lot else to play on those wings. I mean, PJ Tucker, Carmelo, they need backups, right? They're not playing Bruno Caboclo or, Zhao Qi, I guess maybe they could play.
And this team's going to be pretty good. So, like, Melo's going to get rest. Tucker's going to get rest. People are going to get rest on this team. So, Ennis will probably come in and get some decent minutes here and there during the season.
But he's not a great fantasy player, but at the same time, he's probably going to shoot decent percentages. He can get you maybe a steal a game if he's getting enough minutes and, 10 points. It's nothing special. But at the same time, I think there's going to be kind of just very steady, consistent production there.
Yeah, playing time does mean something in those big leagues. I think that is it for the Houston Rockets. A pretty boring outlook for them, in my opinion. Hopefully, you gained a little information from the Houston Rockets preview. And we are going to continue with our 30 teams in over 30 days. But if you like what you're hearing and you like the podcast, please rate and review us. We'd really appreciate that. Or you can find Tyler at Tyler P. Watts, WTTS, on Twitter, or myself at Watch the Boxes. Feel free to hit us up with feedback for the show or questions that you have about the Houston Rockets or any other team. And if you want to subscribe, join Tyler's Dynasty League, patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. You'll get exclusive content in the lead up to the season. Some sleepers, some mock draft podcasts, and probably some extras that we're not going to be featuring on the regular show. So just to give a an extra benefit to those who have subscribed, and we really appreciate that. It helps us keep the podcast going. Other than that, that's it for the Rockets, and have a good night. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes. Damn it.
The Mark Roberts special.
It always happens once. I'm going to do... Let's do the Nuggets. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com and draft.com, where if you use the promo code BOXES, you will get a free entry to your first draft. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
Take 3.
What's that?
This is take 3 on the Nuggets.
The Big Three? Are you been watching the Big Three championships? Is that what you've been doing, Tyler?
I have not, but I will say this. Some guy contacted me about interviewing some people from the Big Three.
That's pretty cool.
I politely had to decline because
What?
it didn't really work into my schedule. Not players. It was just people calling the Big Three. And another guy who works for the site I work for actually did do the interview. So, yeah, the Big Three's getting big, and did you see the Kobe thing? I thought that was hilarious. Steven Jackson, they asked him if Kobe could deal with the physicality of the Big Three.
Yeah, that was a ridiculous question. Steven Jackson, I think, reacted properly by being just completely aghast of whatever the hell that reporter was talking about. Just like, what is wrong with you? Saying Kobe might not be able to handle the physicality. It's Kobe Bryant.
Well, and wouldn't he be at least by NBA credentials, he would easily be the best player in the Big Three.
Yeah, like Michael Jordan could play in the Big Three right now.
Right? And
pretty sure.
Well, they're all guys who are well past their prime, right? No offense to any of them. It's cool that they're still balling and they're all putting on a show.
They're still better than literally everyone you've ever met playing basketball still.
Right. And here's the thing, though. Most of them are Kobe's contemporaries, right? It's not like they're young guys ripping it up in that Big Three. It's all the guys Kobe played with. Baron Davis, Birdman, all those guys are in it.
I love Birdman. Yeah, check out the Big Three. This podcast is sponsored by the Big Three, and it's great entertainment value while you're waiting for real basketball to appear. And while we're waiting for real basketball to appear, we have been doing 30 teams in 30 days. And tonight, we're going to be talking about a team near and dear to my heart. No, not the Chicago Bulls. Drink at home if you're playing. I'm talking about the Denver Nuggets. I'm just a fan. I'm a fan of the city Denver. I like the Denver Nuggets, old rainbow jerseys. And, I like the Nuggets too. I like that team. It's a fun team.
You just like to get a 20-piece and sit by the TV and watch the Nuggets?
I like chicken nuggets. I like weed nuggets. I like Denver Nuggets. It's all good, man. Everything's good when you got a nugget. So, Tyler, we don't always start with this question because we didn't start with this question last time. But what is the most interesting thread going into the Denver Nuggets season next year?
The fact that Michael Porter is age 0.
No, that is not the right answer. That is incorrect. I didn't think you could be wrong with the answer to that question, but you did it.
According to Spot Rack, Michael Porter Jr.'s age is 0, which I still can't figure out. I am feverishly.
I think they're just predicting how many seasons he'll play in the NBA.
Man, that back is scary stuff, right?
I mean,
does he play a game this season? We'll start with that question.
The answer is no. Michael Porter Jr. will not play a game this season. There's no reason for
not
him
even in the G League.
No,
none, no games. I'm kind of with you on that. I think
why risk it, right? If he can come back and play in a next year, and that's his best chance of being semi-healthy as an organization. Why do you risk that? The thing is many organizations had the I think actually the Bulls got more medical information than a lot of teams before the draft, and actually ended up sending it out to other teams to take a look at.
Well, they had it first.
Yes. And the Bulls were like, hells to the no.
If you follow that story, so basically the thing was he wasn't going to release any of it at all. And the big red flag for me was when he didn't do anything at the combine, and is it his brother or his cousin? I always forget. Jonte Porter, who also played for Missouri, I believe it's his brother, like completely dropped out of the draft. And a lot of people had him projected as a first-round pick. And that kind of threw up a lot of red flags for me of like, well, okay, well, if he's not going to do anything, right, like not even get measured and stuff, that's scary because he knows people are going to be asking about it. I've said this before. It's the same surgery Peyton Manning had, the one that basically ended his football career.
And you can kind of like half-ass it stepping back and throwing a ball. You cannot half-ass jumping around and running.
Well, and here was the weird part. Okay, so he gave the information to the Bulls, like I want to say it was a couple weeks before draft night, but he wouldn't give it to anyone else. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense because if you're willing to share it with the Bulls,
yeah, like I don't know what they thought was going to happen. The Bulls were going to go, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was.
No,
apparently it was worse than they thought it was.
What I think he was hoping was. That's because Sacramento was definitely interested. There wasn't just smoke there. There was fire. They wanted him.
Well, yeah, Sacramento and the Bulls seem to make a lot of bad decisions, and so why not?
I think he was hoping that Sacramento never got the info, and they decided he was better choice than Marvin Bagley, and they went with him at pick 2, and obviously that was been a lot of money for him, a big difference in his rookie skill contract.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. He went to the Nuggets. I don't think he plays the game either. I think the best move for him at this point would be to put him on the Harry Giles plan and just sit him out.
Yeah.
Put him on a strengthening program, hopefully strengthen up that back and as much as possible and get him on the court and see where he's at next year. And
if you're in a dynasty league, would you take Michael Porter Jr. or Harry Giles? Who would you – you had a choice to pick between the two of them.
Give me Giles. I feel like Giles is going to give you some defensive stats. Porter Jr. is strictly a scorer for the most part.
That's true. That's enough about Michael Porter Jr. I'm going to go ahead and answer the question about what's the most interesting thread with the Denver Nuggets, and I think that is the return of Paul Millsap. Paul Millsap was pretty much out, I would say, a majority of the season, if I'm remembering correctly. He ended up playing 38 games. Okay. Barely made majority of the season. And during that second half is when the team really took off. Jokic was almost a triple-double a night type of guy. He was boosted up into the top 10 in fantasy. Gary Harris and Will Barton were doing Gary Harris and Will Barton things. And Stephen Willie Barton was gunning. Was just scoring all day, every day. He was amazing. Jamal Murray was coming into his own. And now, all of a sudden, Paul Millsap's back in the lineup. And one, how's Paul Millsap doing after that injury? What's his fantasy value? And then two, how does he affect the rest of this team, who basically got better once he was gone?
Well, they got better for fantasy, right? I think they all got plus. It's hard to say with Millsap because they just signed him. He was still kind of fitting into that team, and we see that a lot, right? Teams struggle early on in the season when new players are fitting in, especially when it's mostly all the same guys, and then one new guy and one guy who gets as much usage and does as many things as Paul Millsap can do. That's kind of a difficult transition. I'm actually a little bit more worried about it. I won't say dinging Jokic's value, but knocking him down a few pegs in the sense that we talk about this all the time, right? Those guys in that 8 to 12 range are so close to one another that Millsap taking some of the usage away from Jokic could knock him down from 8 to 10 or 8 to 11 pretty easy. Millsap
I think it does matter. A couple touches here, a couple assists, a couple rebounds, and all of a sudden you're looking at a fully second tier guy.
So Millsap at 33, I actually have seen him going undervalued a lot, I think, from where I kind of have him. But I'll ask you first. Is he a top 50 player? Is he a top 100 player? Where are you putting Millsap?
Man, I mean, he did not look good last year. And I know he ended up technically he was with a new team, and then he was obviously injured.
He didn't look like the top 30s Millsap that we had seen, right? Top 20s
man. Millsap used to be a top 10, top 15 guy, and I think his drop off has been swift. You saw that last year in Atlanta. Him kind of get a little injury plague there and ended up falling basically to the bottom of the top 50. And then last year, per game, he was actually 83rd. I'm not sure he's going to be as bad as 83rd, but he's not a top 50 player to me.
Yeah, and so in kind of doing some quick and dirty math, right? He's probably in my 60s or 70s. I've seen him go even down further than that. Yeah. And I don't know, man.
He's a forgotten name. I think people are going to get value out of Paul Millsap this year. I think he's going to fall into the 80s even.
Yeah, and I'm in. I'm definitely in on that. I think it's safe. And here's kind of a safe stat line I'll read out for him. I think he plays like 30, he played 30 minutes a game in his 38 games last year. And some of those were building his way back from injury, right?
Yes.
So you got to figure he's like 32 minutes a game on that team still. Good or bad. And that's kind of where they were playing him last year. And
it's not like he's like 12 points a night looking like trash. So, like he had a 36-9 night. He had a 26-13-5 night. Like he's still got those weird Millsap flashes where you're like, is this guy one of the best players in the league? And then he kind of reverts and you're like, oh no, he had 8 points today. He's not one of the best players.
Well, here's the thing though. I think he's going to get like 32 minutes. Now, he's only going to get you like a 3 a game, which we talk about that all the time. That's not very good anymore.
No.
But probably like 6.5, 7 rebounds, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 assists, I think. 15 points, probably like a steal and pretty close to a block.
A block, steal, and a 3. Why 15. Isn't this? That usually means you're approaching the top 50.
Right, that's what I mean with 15 points. Now the question is how many games, right? Obviously,
a great punt free throw strategy guy.
Yeah. So in Mark's rankings, he is number 80, playing 65 games at 31 minutes a game. And I think Mark's a little bit low on the points. He only has him for 14.7. I would put him closer to like 15.
Yeah, I could see 15, 16. I could see an extra minute, and I could see a few extra games.
So I think he's a top 75 player. I'll say it. I think he's a top 75 player.
I'm not against that.
And I think he'll maybe go a little bit lower than that in some leagues where guys are like, oh, he was trash last year, man. He's terrible.
We keep saying this. I think this is a recurring theme. So there was not a lot of movement this offseason. So there's not a lot of unknowns. But I think what people are always latch on to, no matter what the year is, if someone was injured the year before or out of the limelight or just kind of missing or had fallen off, everyone's like, well, that guy's terrible. I'm out on that dude. Well, like, I think people are out on Chris Paul because he's old and he got injured near the end of the year. People seem to be out on Paul Millsap because when he got injured and he came back a little limp, and I don't know why he wouldn't revert a little bit closer to the mean versus falling off even further. So this is another one of those guys. I think you're going to get a really good value. I think Tyler's you kind of hit it. You're going to see this guy drop well past where you would normally draft him, and that usually means really good fantasy value.
They got another guy on this team who did a similar thing, but I don't know that we expect him to bounce back that much, and that's Isaiah Thomas, right?
Oh, you love Isaiah Thomas.
Well, the point, and I made this in take 1 that fell on the scrap heap. In Mark's rankings, he is not ranked 95th at 24 minutes a game.
That's surprising to me.
And in only 24 minutes a game. Now, if you know how Mark does his rankings, right, it's all based on per minute production, and he takes into account basically most of the player's career. And for some players, he takes in their whole career. Some players, it's only like the last 3 seasons. Obviously, one of those seasons for Thomas is a really, really good year.
Yes.
Right? He had that amazing year with the Celtics.
A little skewed.
And this hip thing, like, man, does anyone know if he's going to even be 90% of Isaiah Thomas' share? I mean, he did look like it last year. He looked like a shell of his former self.
So I'm kind of with you. Like, Isaiah Thomas didn't look good. Everybody's going to be out on him. But is it unreasonable to see him, and this is what Mark Roberts has him on the rankings, 17 points a game, 2 3-pointers, 4 assists?
Yeah, right. That doesn't seem that unrealistic, does it?
No, that's not unreasonable.
Especially as probably the 6th man.
Maybe in 24 minutes a game, but I think he's going to play more than 24 minutes a game.
Well, he's going to be the 6th man on this team. Apparently, with that contract they gave Will Barton, they promised him that he would start.
All right. My guy, Stephen Willie Barton, getting the start.
So the starters are going to be Harris, Murray, Barton, Millsap, Jokic, right? Like, that's pretty much set in stone.
I love it. And so, like, that's the kind of people were saying, oh, Isaiah Thomas is going to be there. He's going to take minutes from Stephen Willie Barton. Is he going to take minutes from Jamal Murray? And he might take a few minutes from Jamal Murray, actually. But not Will Barton.
Well, and I mean, Will Barton didn't start last year. You know what I mean? So there's going to be minutes there. I wouldn't be surprised to see Thomas play like 27, 28 minutes a game.
Yeah,
and
he played 27 in last season, mostly in LA, and had 15 and 5 assists and almost 2 threes. Like, not crazy.
Looking at this team's bench unit, right? If that's their starting 5, okay, they got Plumlee and they got Trey Lyles, who are 2 pretty decent big men bench options. But who in the backcourt for a bench option do they have? I mean, he's competing for minutes with like Isaiah Whitehead and Malik Beasley and
yeah, they lost Wilson Chandler, they lost Darrell Arthur, they lost Kenneth Faried. There's plenty of minutes to go around here in Denver, and I think when you look at this depth chart here, Trey Lyles, and then you got Mason Plumlee, Torrey Craig, Juan Hernangomez, obviously Michael Porter's all the way out, Malik Beasley, like you said. There's not a lot of there's really no wings, so like I think these starters are going to be playing quite a few minutes, 34 minutes a game.
Well, and I mean that's what I mean. There's no one to play on the wing, and there's no one really to back up at the guard positions. So
there's not really anyone to back up at any position. You got Trey Lyles
and Plumlee, right? I feel like those are 2 decent backup big men.
Trey Lyles, Plumlee's all right.
And Trey Lyles can't really play the 3 either, so it's like you have a power forward and a center backup, and that's it. And then Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, so I mean, what are you going to do? Rotate Jamal Murray and Gary Harris up and put Isaiah at the 1, and then swing Will Barton back in and just rotate those guys in and out of 3 spots? 5 guys for 3, 4 guys for 3 spots. Is that what's going to happen? Because that's what it feels like it's going to happen.
Well, and Beasley might get a few minutes, right? They might play Monte Morris in the backcourt a little bit.
Please don't.
You know what I mean? This team, like people will say, oh, this team's going to be a lot better with Millsap. Okay, but they lost a lot of their depth.
Yeah, they have like 0 depth. And that is a big deal.
One injury, season. I mean, Barton, Harris, Murray go down. You're playing big minutes to someone who
I don't want to start Isaiah Thomas.
Well, you're also going to have to give big minutes to someone who's either out of position or just not very good.
Yeah. And in a very, very, I would say, aggressively deep playoff race in the West.
That Western Conference is loaded. Other than the Kings.
Murderer's row over there. Any team, I think, can make the playoffs other than, like you said, the Kings. They're not making it.
The Suns, maybe. The Suns are going to have to take a big leap to make it. But Dallas is a lot better. Memphis is a lot better, especially if they can stay healthy. Like, there's going to be a lot of teams in that race competing, and I don't know, man.
Denver didn't make it last year. They lost in the basically what was a play-in game.
Yep, I'm not backing Denver this year to make the playoffs.
No, neither. Neither am I. And so let's talk about the other. We've kind of talked about their role on this team, but let's talk about where you're taking them in fantasy. And let's start at the top. Jokic is, like I said, a triple double from a center. Not a great blocks guy for your center, but you're still getting essentially 7 assists from your center during the second half of the season. Jokic was basically a top 10 player. Is he in your top 10 for next year's draft?
Yeah, but there's a big group there, and it's kind of personal preference, I would say. After that there's the first kind of tier, and then I'd say he's in that second tier.
Yeah, he's in my second tier, but he's like 100% in my second tier, and I think, like I said, I would take him if I'm on the turn and I get a chance to take him. I think it's going to be pretty rare because I think people are really in on Jokic this year. Nikola Jokic is probably everyone's darling first round pick because of his strong second half. And I still think, you got to earn it. If you want to be picked over someone like Karl Anthony Towns, you got to earn it. And Jokic has not earned it.
And
so, yeah, that's insane. That's wrong.
We've seen this from Jokic before, where he's like closes real strong, and then he comes out the next year and he's good, but not great, and then he closes strong again, and so that could be his thing. All right, let's go. Who you want, LeBron or Jokic?
Okay, and I wasn't going to talk about this until the LA Lakers.
Oh, no, don't talk about it. Just tell me who you want. That's okay. You don't got to talk about it.
All right, I'm taking Jokic.
Kawhi Leonard.
Taking Jokic.
Yeah, especially today. I see a couple preseason games, though. I'm going to go for Kawhi. If I see Kawhi looking like old Kawhi, I'm going Kawhi there.
And honestly, it's not even like maybe I should take Kawhi. It's, Kawhi looks like Kawhi again. Yeah, I'm taking him over Jokic 100%.
Paul George.
Probably Jokic.
Damian Lillard.
Probably Jokic.
All right, so you got Jokic in your top 8.
I do. I just, I like what he's got going on from a center position. It's just too rare of a position. I guess, the scoring leaves a little to be desired, but if you can get him right there, if you're picking late in the first round, I mean, if you want to go, I think LeBron and Damian Lillard are 2 guys you would go, okay, maybe.
Still only 23, gotten better every year.
Yeah, I mean, super young, going to get better.
Don't love from Jokic, and right, we talk about picking hairs, is only 0.8 blocks from a center position. If he could get that up a little bit, if he can get that over 1, that'd be nice. Yeah, right. If he could just do the Vucevic where he was like 0.8, 0.8, 0.8, and then he finally got it over 1 and he's kind of held it, that would be a big boost to his value. So I don't know if that happens, but that's something to watch out for.
Big jump in 3-pointers last year, so that's huge.
Yeah. Well, big jump in minutes too, right? He got basically 5 minutes a game more last year.
Yeah, that's pretty big. But you're not, and I'm talking mostly from a roto perspective. You could convince me Dame or LeBron in a head-to-head over Jokic. Pretty. That's a much weaker argument to take Jokic over those guys. But in a roto league, a center shooting 85% from a free throw. And
that group there is just so fungible, man. I mean, any of those guys, right? You're not really going wrong, and it's almost why picking on the turn in a 12-team league. Man, if you're telling me I can get like Lillard and Paul George,
great.
Man, sign me up for that.
Yeah. In fact, I've been trying to looking at that a little bit, and there's there's that center pack that we talk about in previous episodes. Those late centers of like Steven Adams types and Miles Turners, and then there's also like a late group of point guards out there. Like your Chris Dunns, and that makes me kind of lean towards getting some elite wings in on that turn. So, I've been looking at like why not just go Butler George? if Lillard and Jokic are gone, and LeBron's gone, Jokic or not Jokic, but George and Jimmy Butler, you've just locked up two of the best threes in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, especially early, like right now, even going Kawhi and Paul George, it's like boom. a win your league strategy right there. Like, I'm going to try to take this.
Done.
I mean, we don't really know what we're going to get from Kawhi yet, obviously, but I mean, if Kawhi's 100% healthy, that sounds like maybe a league-winning strategy right there.
Yeah, I'm 100% on that. And we're going to do some of those who do I drafts where we actually go through that top 10, top 12 and do basically a mock draft of the first 5 or 6 rounds. And we'll probably beat you over the head with our draft philosophy during those. So, stay tuned for those who do I draft segments coming up closer to the regular season. With the Denver Nuggets finishing up here, you have a group of players, Gary Harris and Will Barton and Jamal Murray, all pretty much 2s. Some of them play 2-3, some of them play 1-2, and they're all pretty similar players overall. The outlier being, I think, Gary Harris steals kind of makes him the leader of this pack. Will Barton is going to shoot a lower percentage, but he gets better rebounds. And Jamal Murray is kind of like basically a Gary Harris light. So what order do you have these guys in? Are you interested in any of them? Do you see them making a leap this year?
So in my personal rankings, it's Harris, Murray, and then Will Barton.
I know, because you are a Will Barton hater.
No. That's not where I'm going with this. We'll talk about Will here in a second. So Mark Roberts has Jamal Murray at 37th and Gary Harris 45th.
He's got Jamal Murray ahead of Gary Harris.
Yes, sir.
Now that's a bit surprising to me because I feel like those players incredibly similar.
Well, here's the surprising. The most surprising part to me, right, is apparently by his value, right? So Harris shoots a little better from the field, and Murray shoots a little better from the line. So we'll just kind of cross that out. That's pretty similar. Yeah. Pretty similar threes, okay? Murray's averaging a rebound more and 0.7 assists more.
That's nice.
But Gary Harris is averaging 0.6 steals more. Now, to me, I'd rather have the 0.6 steals than the rebound and assist.
Yeah, I'll take the steals.
But by Mark's algorithm, that's not the way it goes. But still, give me Gary Harris. If you're telling me those are the numbers, I'm still taking Gary Harris above Jamal Murray. That's just me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Also, I mean, Jamal Murray might play more games and does get almost a half a block a game, which is pretty nice. To me, you could switch those guys. I think Gary Harris, if he is eligible for for the 2 or the 3 on your team, like if he can play a forward and a guard spot, depending on how you have your roster set up, makes him even just a tad bit more valuable. So I'm taking Gary Harris over Jamal Murray, but to me, they're both potentially top 50 players. I think Gary Harris is for sure a top 50 player, and Jamal Murray, he's 21 years old. He's going to improve, and I can see him being a top 50 player.
Okay, all right, let's get down to it. This is the one you've been wanting to take me to task on, so let's hear your Will Barton love.
All right, once again, you are incorrect and wrong about Will Barton's fantastic fantasy value, and I think you're a bit wrong about his NBA talent as well. You've been hating on Will Barton for like 3 years, and every single year he goes off for the second half or like the last 2 months or a 2 months span where he's easily a top 50 player. Last year, with totals, he played 81 games, so that's helping him out a bit. He finished 29th. In the second half of the season, he was in the top 25. He is Will Barton, and he is a fantasy darling, and I love him.
Okay, so that was never the argument I made against Will Barton.
Don't believe that.
Okay, and if you remember all the way back to when Will Barton joined the Nuggets in like 2014, the case that both Mark and I made at that time to you was that we didn't think Will Barton was a great NBA player.
Correct. You
He's
guys
always
are
been
haters.
he's always been a better fantasy player than NBA player. Will you give me that?
I will give you that.
Okay. He had his best season of his career last year. Will you agree with that?
That is, I think, pretty obvious, but it's also the first time in his career where he's been given the keys. He's not coming off the bench. He's not, going cold because he isn't out there on the floor getting experience and getting into the flow of the game. Some guys just kind of need that stuff. He started a ton of games last year. He played 81 games. He played 33 minutes a game, up to 35 during the second half of the season. The dude can ball.
And he's 27. He's in his prime. So here's my point, and here's why I still think I'm right. Last year was the first year of his career, and I will admit he was better last year. He looked better last year. It was the first year of his career that he rated as an above league average player by win shares per 48.
Okay.
And
is that going to be one of the categories in your new Dynasty League?
So here's my point.
Okay.
I've never been a huge fan of his actual NBA game. And my point all the way back in 2014 when he was basically, he had played 3 seasons for Portland, never really gotten any minutes, was if I don't really think you're that good of an NBA player, I don't really think you're going to earn huge minutes. He's gotten better. I'll give him credit. He's gotten better. He's getting the minutes now. I don't see any reason why he doesn't get huge minutes on his team. We just talked about how bad the bench is.
Yeah, it's pretty bad bench. There's nowhere for them to go. So Will Barton is 100% going to play at least 33 minutes again this year, which made him per game a top 50 player.
So now let's get down to business. Let's get down to brass tacks here.
All right.
Okay. Where are you ranking him, and where do you think he should be ranked? There's 2 kind of perceptions here, right? There's your perception and the market's perception.
Sure.
I think some people are going to read the numbers you read a minute ago, where he was 25th at the end of last season or whatever the number was, and take this guy way too high. But maybe that's just me.
Now you're onto something. So I'm in total agreement with you that people are going to look at his performance last year, and it's really easy to go out and take a look what he did, what he was ranked, and I think you're also going to see quite a few rankings out there from less reputable sources. I think actually Mark Roberts over on #basketball.com's projections has him quite a little too low for my taste. The hate is still there. I can smell.
Well, he only gave him 30 minutes, which I think we can.
Mark, what are you doing?
Well, no, and Mark will tell you this, right? That a lot of it is he really only got 33 minutes last year, and before that he was around 28. So
yeah, it's the algorithm.
Right. So
and the algorithm is more accurate than it is not, and I cannot hate on the algorithm. But no, I'm following your thread here. They're going to see, in the second half, he was a top 30 player. They go out to totals. They see that 81 game, and they're like, he's a top 25 player. I don't think I can draft Will Barton in the top 50.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I
think there are 50 and that sounds really stupid, especially since I just read off that he finished in the top 25 on totals.
Him and Lou Williams
in the top 50 on average.
He and Lou Williams are in that same boat for me. And Lou Williams did the same thing, right? He was way up there last year, and I'm not taking him in the top 50 either.
No, I'm definitely not taking Lou Williams in the top 50. He's fallen off my planet. But Will Barton has not fallen off for me.
Okay, so
is there a world where I do take Will Barton in the top 50 based on where I'm drafting? Yeah, there is. I doubt it, but I think there is.
So is he third in your Denver Nuggets, whatever you want to call it, starting rankings, or behind? Is he behind Harris and Murray?
In a roto league, yes.
Okay.
In a maybe in a head-to-head league, you can convince me that he's ahead of Jamal.
All right. So I'm gonna name you 10 players that I'd personally rather have over Will Barton that are all ranked outside the top 50 in Mark's rankings. You ready for this?
Okay, let me hear it.
Jeff Teague.
Okay. Okay.
I'd much rather have Jeff Teague. Jeff Teague's 7 assists are gonna make him way more valuable than Will Barton, if you ask me.
We were both on Jeff Teague last year, and I think people are going to be out on him again for some reason.
This is an interesting one, and maybe one I'll have to think more about. Aaron Gordon.
I don't know about that. Aaron Gordon, it's kind of hit or miss. What's going on in Orlando? I don't like his situation. I like Will Barton's situation better.
Well, and I mean, we're going to talk about that when we get to Orlando. Like that whole non-point guard thing worries the poo out of me.
They're going to run Aaron Gordon at point guard.
Luka Doncic.
All right. Well, that's not fair. You can't bring sexy rookies into this discussion.
These are guys all ranked outside the top 50 in Mark's rankings. Enes Kanter.
I like Enes Kanter.
I'd rather have Kanter than him too. Let's see here. I got a couple more. Nick Batum.
I don't know about that one either.
Oh, no. See, I think that's a mistake. You're sleeping on Batum.
I am sleeping. I'm not sleeping on Batum, but I think you're inflating Batum back to some older days, and I have a personal relationship with Nick Batum. He did me wrong.
You guys were sordid lovers at one point?
We were roommates, and what he did is made me lose my fantasy league like at least 3 years by not playing. He's a piece of crap. I like Nick Batum this year, actually. He's going to be he's very, very under draft right now.
Paul Millsap. Another nugget.
I don't know.
Give me Millsap, man.
I don't know.
But I'll say this, too, and this is another thing that maybe worries me a little bit about Will Barton, is he going to get as much usage starting every game? And maybe you're going to say they shipped him back to that bench role a little bit in some games. I think he got a lot of his scoring and just like it's your ball basically in some of those bench units.
But like he started quite a few games down the stretch last year.
Oh well, he started basically half his games, right? He started 40, he played 81, like yeah.
And that was during the second half, and his second half was better than his first half. But by quite a bit, actually.
But here's the thing, too. He was starting, but like how much of it was he starting and then kind of still being that head of the head of the second unit, and then they were bringing the other guys back on.
I think they're being forced to do that again this season.
And that's possible. So here's I'll end it with two more. Jonathan Isaac.
I like Jonathan Isaac. I think I'd still rather have Will Barton.
Now, see, this is kind of a home runner. This is once
again, I don't trust Orlando.
In a deep league, I would definitely rather have Will Barton. In a shallow league, though, give me the upside of what Isaac might be.
That's a good, you might really hit on Isaac, and he could be, a Karolinko-esque type of player. Like across the board. Maybe never a great scorer, but like tons of counting stats.
Yeah, and then the last one for me is a guy we've talked about a little bit, Kyle Anderson. I'd rather have Kyle Anderson than Will Barton. I just feel like the defensive stats are going to be so much better. Like Kyle Anderson could be elite steals and a block a game.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think I still take Will Barton just because he's great.
Now, see, I feel like Kyle Anderson is a great Roto player this year, and you're always the man champion for Roto. He's not going to score a ton.
I like Kyle Anderson. I like Will Barton better. I like all these players. Every one of these players
with his 43% from the field.
I like all of these players.
I think you're messing that one up in the Roto League, especially.
Nah, I'm good. I'm good with that. I think that's it for the Denver Nuggets. Unless you have any, I guess, not late guys, but we talked about how bad this bench is. There's any deep league throws out here?
Sign me up for a little bit of Trey Lyles probably in the deep league, just in the sense that I feel like they're going to have to play somebody and they're going to have to use somebody off that bench to score a little bit.
And Trey Lyles is really, really good in longer minutes.
Right. And like, you know what I mean? And if Millsap goes down or, Jokic, like I could see Trey Lyles playing more minutes. And so that's exciting. The bench is just so bad that give me some Trey Lyles and maybe even a little bit of Mason Plumlee. If people are sleeping on him, like taking him at like pick 200, and I'll take a little bit of him just in the sense of like I feel like this bench has not much to offer.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's just a really, really bad bench. I don't know what else to do here. That's, I think, for the Denver Nuggets. If you guys like what we are talking about, you like the podcast, go ahead, rate and review us to whatever device or application you are listening to this podcast on. If you want to reach out to us, you can find me at Watch the Boxes on Twitter and Tyler at Tyler P. Watts with 2 T's over there. Feel free to hit us up with questions about your team, questions about the Denver Nuggets, or stuff you want to hear on the podcast leading up to the season. Thanks for listening, everybody. And if you want to subscribe, get in that. I think we have maybe one spot left on that Dynasty League for Tyler's. Go to patreon.com/watching the boxes.
I worked hard on these very nice rules for this Dynasty League. So if this one fills and we can get enough people to do another one, I'll think about it.
Okay, you'll think about it. So if we get more interest in it, we might be doing 2.
Right.
I like that. I like that. We're open. We're open to suggestions. We're open to the idea.
Right. And so that's why if you people want to play, get in there. Don't worry about it being the last spot. Put the money down. Put your money where your mouth is.
Well,
right?
I mean, you're not just paying to get into the league. You're subscribing to Patreon to help out the podcast, to keep the podcast running. And you're going to get exclusive content, not just on the lead up to the season, but during the season as well. So, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, patreon.com/watching the boxes.
We will try to help you win your league as much as we can.
As we always try to do. I think that's it for the Denver Nuggets. We will continue with our 30 teams in over 30 days next time. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a good one. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com and draft.com, where if you use the promo code BOXES, you will get a free entry to your first draft. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's not like 300 degrees out. I think it might actually be 300 degrees out here in a few days. The summer might never end, but like when I was a kid, I never wanted summer to end. So, I'm just going to deal with it.
I feel like it hasn't been terrible. So I'm just happy about that. It's rained a lot here, which I'm not a huge fan of, but
let's see. It's here in the Midwest. I think it's a little drier. It's actually been raining for the first time lately, so it's kind of finally cooled off the general area. And if you're aware of how the Midwest works, it's just a bunch of farmers complaining about how it hasn't rained or how it's rained too much or some other nonsense. But I'm sure it'll warm up. It always warms up before Labor Day. Labor Day is around my birthday, so it's always too hot for my birthday. It's always too hot for Labor Day. And I don't know, it's a nice way to end the summer. I'm a big fan of Labor Day.
It is. One last nice big cookout and food and all the fun. And yeah. I'm excited for today because we get to talk about a team that actually has a bench that doesn't make me want to throw up.
Really? What team is that, Tyler?
What team do you think it is? I feel like these people already know. Why do we always try to like hide it? Like,
yeah, I know. We're like, oh, don't spoil which team it is, and like you literally clicked on the Indiana Pacers preview. Like you know what we're doing. You're out here.
You're out here grinding.
We're not tricking anybody here.
I feel like we still might have tricked someone. Maybe one time you should just name it the wrong one. Just
don't worry about it preview. And it's just you just guess. It's a mystery preview. I'll see if that gets more downloads. The mystery preview. But no, this one is for the Indiana Pacers. We're doing our 30 teams in over 30 days, and so far so good. I don't know if we're almost halfway through. I don't know how far we are.
I feel like we're a little over halfway, but I don't know. I haven't done the counting.
We might not even be halfway, actually. Uh-oh. This is like right when we're like, oh, we're doing really well, and then we realize we're not halfway. And then like the last ones were like, oh my gosh, there's so many teams.
No, we've done a lot now. I feel like we've done half at least.
All right, well, let's get into the Pacers here. Let's see. What did the Pacers do this offseason?
The Pacers had a second offseason where they've done at least a few moves. So I feel like some of these teams, they're running back like all the same guys, right? These guys, at least, they got Doug McDermott. They got Kyle O'Quinn. They got a couple draft picks on the team.
Yeah, Chicago Bulls great. Doug McDermott, who we traded for campaign.
They got Tyreek Evans. That was the one. That was the name I was looking for.
Yeah, they picked up Tyreek Evans. They picked up Kyle O'Quinn. They drafted Aaron Holiday, who is worth a second look. And they sadly lost Lance Stevenson to the Lakers. But like this team was making moves in a very slow off season. They didn't do a whole lot to change the shape of their starters. But I think they did at least some things to make their team a little stronger. And that's good. That's positive.
Yeah, I mean, Tyreek over Lance is a big upgrade right there. McDermott should give him a little more floor spacing. And we're both fans of Kyle O'Quinn. I don't think he's going to get a ton of minutes here, but
no, it's Kyle O'Quinn's always the man. Look at his per 36, and he only plays 22 minutes. But he is in a new environment, so it will be someone to pay attention to. He's always worth a stream. If you didn't stream, honestly, if you did not stream Kyle O'Quinn last year, you're either in too deep a league or you're not playing fantasy basketball right. I feel like every single person streams Kyle O'Quinn at some point during the season.
It's a rite of passage of your fantasy season.
Yeah, I think it is. So let's go to what is usually the question we start out with here. What is the most interesting storyline here for the Indiana Pacers going into the next fantasy season?
Well, I think it's the addition of Tyreek Evans and how that affects the chasm of the rest of the fantasy relevant men on this team, right?
Yeah, you got a guy who, had his best season since his weird elite rookie season, coming into a team that needed kind of a backup guard. But is Tyreek a backup guard? Is he a starting guard? Does he start over Darren Collison? Can he play with Victor Oladipo when Victor Oladipo kind of is a default ball in his hands guard anyway? Can he play Tyreek at the 3 even and put Collison, Tyreek, and Oladipo out there? Go ahead.
I think they signed Evans to be the 6-man type.
Yeah,
kind of score off the bench, which this team needed. Right? I think the starting lineup of Darren Collison has transformed himself into one of the best, at least percentage-wise, 3-point shooters in the NBA.
Which is incredible, and I think very, very overlooked. I just want to throw it out there on per-game value, 9-cat. Darren Collison finished in the top 50 last year.
Not surprised. He had a great season. Because
I think if you didn't own Darren Collison, you would be surprised by that.
So the thing with Evans is, what is Tyreek Evans? I mean, we saw we saw the last 3 years, 25, 40, 52 games. Now, people are going to remember him, I think, for being great because a lot of people picked him up off the waiver wire to like start their season, and he was awesome in the games that he played.
And like this round of awesome was consistent. Usually, if you pick up Tyreek, he's awesome for a week, and he either gets hurt or he just falls back off or he doesn't play. He was consistently playing about 30 minutes a night, and the first half of the last season, he was killing it. Second half of the season, I think the shot kind of got away from him, but he was still 25 rebounds, 6 to 7 assists, stealing a half, and sometimes almost a half a block in the second half.
Well, and here's what's crazy though is he didn't play that much in the second half, and it was all because they said they were going to trade him, so they like sent him home, and they never traded him, and then he just like never came back. And
yeah, that was super super weird.
So was he hurt? Were his feelings hurt? I don't know. I don't really know what happened there, and maybe we never really know what happened there.
That feels like something that Memphis should have been fined for. I've seen other teams be fined. I think the Bulls, if you're drinking, playing at home, feel free to drink on the mention of the Chicago Bulls, were actually fined last year for purposely losing games. I don't know how you get fined for that when Memphis literally sent one of their best healthy players home for the last half of the season, and they were like, "Oh yeah, no, this is just normal stuff here."
Yeah, so that was just weird, and
bullshit is what it was.
I'm not going to speculate on what even happened. I'm assuming that the difference was the Bulls had no excuse, and there had to have been some sort of reasoning behind this, and that's why they didn't get fined. Or we see this with some of those smaller market teams. Sometimes that stuff just doesn't really make the public eye like it would in Chicago. Right? Like maybe they got fined and the guy from the commercial appeal was just like, I'm not going to write a story about that. And so then no one covered it.
I doubt it.
Right? So
I doubt it.
I honestly think there was a reason. There was some sort of reason there. And it was something that the league accepted. What that reason is, I'm not going to speculate.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So going into Indiana's season with Tyreek Evans probably being more of a six-man, though a heavily played six-man, I'm going to set the over-under on minutes per game at 30. What are you taking, Tyler?
Give me the under. I just feel like he's going to be kind of in that range. But as a six-man, right, I think we see a lot of times them flirt with that 30 minutes but end up finishing just under. So I'm going to go just under at like 29 and a half.
Yeah, only 3 guys on this Indiana team played more than 30 minutes a game. Corey Joseph even played 27 minutes a game. So I think with a lot of guards in the mix, his minutes probably do decrease a little bit. And, I'm still worried about Tyreek's health. I'm worried about really his consistency.
So in a Mike-only draft, where does Tyreek Evans get picked? Where or doesn't he? And that's an acceptable answer, too, is he's outside the top. He's outside the standard league range. I mean, we've seen Tyreek be outside the standard league range plenty, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm not sure I end up picking him, but if I have to rank,
yeah, right. This is Mike only. Evans, like I think he's going to go higher than I'm going to want to pick him. But this is a Mike only league, so
he's a top 100 guy.
So they're all Mikes here.
That would be a fun league. I might start an all Mike league. Just 10 me's drafting against each other. Sounds wonderful. With a little bit.
Josh Lloyd does that every year, I think.
Yeah.
For basketball, the Josh Lloyd draft.
Half those guys are just his alt accounts. That's right.
His burners. They're all his burners.
Burners, yeah. It's him. It's all him and his burners, and the other half's Katie and his burners. That's it. That's who's in those leagues. His usage is going to go down. So just mark that. Just mark that on there. That doesn't mean he still can't produce decent standard league value. I would probably pick him somewhere after 80 or 85. I'm not wasting a top 6th round, 7th round pick on him. Not going to do it. I think there's just too many other guys out there who are going to play more minutes, maybe be a little bit more consistent, or have a higher upside. Because I think what you're seeing is like there's probably not a better case scenario for Tyreek Evans than there was last year, and that's probably how good he can possibly be.
Well, we have no reason to think that he's gonna stay healthy or be able to handle that workload or anything. I mean, he hasn't really been good. I mean, you said it, since 2010, right? He had a season after that where he played 57 games, right? He had one good year in there, I guess, when he played for the Pelicans in 2014, 2015.
Solid year. That was a good year.
But it's like, the games are always up and down with him.
Yep.
So here's what I'll say. I feel like I'm not going to own him at all. I feel like someone's going to take him inside the top 100, and that's a shot. But I'm going to shoot for somebody else. I'd rather have Will Barton.
Oh.
You know how much I don't like Will Barton.
I know you're always hating on Will Barton. And of course, I'd rather have Will Barton.
So I got a couple guys I'd like to ask you in the guardish range. We will start with Evan Fournier.
See, I think Evan Fournier is actually pretty underrated right now. I think a lot of people just kind of either don't know that person plays basketball or don't or had a bad experience Googling his last name, which I do. Please don't. Do not Google his last. It's not a joke. Do not
want to see that.
I think I'd rather have Evan Fournier because I think Evan Fournier stays healthy.
Yeah, right. I just feel a lot better about him. Elfrid Payton.
Very similar. I'd probably take Elfrid. Oh no, Elfrid Payton's on the Thunder now.
The Pelicans.
Oh no, he's on the Pelicans. Who's on the Thunder? Oh, Dennis Schroeder. That's who. Yeah, I'll have to go back and listen to our own review of the preview for the Oklahoma City Thunder, where I do actually talk about Dennis Schroeder being on the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'll probably go with Elfrid Payton on the Pelicans. I like anyone who plays with Anthony Davis.
And you got to figure he's going to start.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm in on Payton too. Dennis Smith Jr.
Ooh, this is where you might get me to go with Tyreek because Dennis Smith Jr., his percentages are so bad. And
we can talk about this too. All those point guards from that draft, right? They had the 5 big point guards. None of them can shoot a field goal or a free throw or a 3-pointer for that matter. None of them.
So in reality, they'll be out of the league in 4 years because now you can have Ben Simmons and Luka Doncic running point, and you don't need Dennis Smith Jr.
I don't know, man. Dennis Smith Jr. is a crazy athlete.
Yeah,
I think Dennis Smith Jr. gets a lot better this year.
Win a dunk contest, but that don't win games.
I feel like Dennis Smith Jr. I'd rather have him this year. I think he's going to be better, and part of it is he's going to have a little more floor spacing around him with Doncic, and I feel like a pick and roll with Dennis Smith Jr. and DeAndre Jordan might be pretty dangerous, especially when Doncic running it. We get 2 cutters, maybe get Dennis Smith cut from that weak side.
Okay, you're making a hard sell. I'm going with Tyreek Evans.
I'm going with Dennis Smith there.
All right,
that's all I got. I'm not going to ask anymore.
All right, I'm gonna ask you one more question about Tyreek Evans. This is the all Tyreek all the time episode of Watching the Boxes. How many Indiana Pacers would you draft before Tyreek Evans?
Now that's tough.
That's a pretty good question. This might be the team with the most standard league relevant players that we've done so far.
Well, that's what I said, right? This team's kind of deep finally.
Yeah, I like it.
About a team. The Depot, you got Miles Turner.
Hold on, you cut out.
All right, I said let's go with the shoe-ins first, right? You got Oladipo and you got Miles Turner, so there's 2.
Okay.
So then things get tight.
Oh come on! I mean, I think there's another shoe in here. Our boy Thad Young. We love Thad Young.
Well, yeah, Thad Young.
He's
okay, I missed that. I missed Thad Young. Okay,
Let's put him in.
I'm definitely having him. So then it's him and Darren Collison, right? And in a roto league, I'd rather have Collison. Collison has just the last few years transformed himself into a very efficient player. And so if it's roto, definitely give me Collison. And then head to head, I'll have to think about how many minutes Evans can steal from Collison.
I mean, do you even want to say maybe Bogdanovich or Sabonis? Are they in the mix for standard league this year? I know Bogdanovich is.
Here's another thing that could hurt Thaddeus Young is Sabonis might steal some of his minutes, right? Because I don't know that Sabonis is really a power forward, but I think they're going to try him there.
I think they kind of have no choice, right?
Yeah. So. Okay, so ahead of Tyreke Evans for me would be Oladipo, Young, Collison, Turner. I think that you could make a standard league case for Bogdanovich and Sabonis. Sabonis is probably in the streaming category for me. Bogdanovich is probably in the if you picked him at the end, I wouldn't mind, but he's probably a streamer too.
Yeah, I think I like Tyreke Evans' fantasy value more than Bogdanovich, even if Bogdanovich is going to play more minutes. If Sabonis is going to play like 31 or 32 minutes, now you're talking about a guy who might be maybe going above Tyreke Evans. But I'm with you. I think there's 4 guys above. I think I'd rather go Darren Collison as well, especially in a roto league. Let's talk about Victor Oladipo. Let's just get it out of the way. Victor Oladipo had an outstanding breakout year. One of those leaps that I think a lot of people who followed Oladipo's career, or at least his fantasy career, knew that he had in him. He was just in a mess of an organization who didn't know how to use him. But this was not the first period of time where Oladipo was playing like a top 10 player. This was just the first time he did it for an entire season. And I think, Oladipo is here to stay. Is Oladipo a first-round draft pick?
No.
Ooh, no. Hard no from Tyler.
Hard no. And
top 10 finished top 10 per game last year. Hard no from Tyler.
Awesome. He was great. Where does Victor Oladipo get better from that season, Mike?
He could get some more assists, perhaps.
Really? You think so?
I mean, he could work on it.
Okay, I mean, he could.
Victor Oladipo is 26 years old.
Victor Oladipo is great, and I am a big Victor Oladipo fan. I just feel like in that first round, give me Paul George, give me Damian Lillard, give me Kawhi Leonard. Right? Like that. Yeah. That's eating up a lot of the back end of that first round, right? Probably give me Jimmy Butler. Even though Jimmy Butler might get injured, but I think I'd still maybe rather have him than Victor Oladipo.
I might take Oladipo for the steals over Jimmy Butler. I mean, I know Jimmy Butler gets really, really good steals, but that's where I have him as well, like top of the second round.
Right, so I have him, somewhere in that 12 to 15 range, which is maybe he's the last pick in that first round for me. But I don't know. I feel like I'm going to take Paul George or Dame Lillard or someone else is going to be there that I want a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, Oladipo's usage was incredibly high on this team. He blew away his career high in steals. And steals are kind of a weird category where they kind of come and go. He almost averaged a block a game. I actually think that is pretty legit. But, other than that, I think this is who Victor Oladipo is. I think he finally got the keys to a team and the dude just balled out. Now, will teams be able to plan better for him this year? He does have a little bit better supporting cast. I'm not really afraid of Oladipo, but I don't want to overhype him. And I think there is some overhype with Oladipo out there. I've seen people taking him a little too high in some of these mock drafts, and I'm with you. I think he's a top of the second round type of player.
Here's my case for why he's not that number 10 player. He shot 47%. He's never done that.
We see that a lot too. We see guys all of a sudden shoot 47, 48% and then revert back to the mean.
Right, invert back to 44. So I'll even say maybe he gets a little better, shoots 45. I don't think he shoots 47. So then we see his points dip a little bit right there to put him. He also shot a career high 3-point percentage. Now you can say he's been working on that, right? Like he shot 37%. It's not anything like outrageous, but we could see a little regression in that too. I feel like he's more of a 20, 21 point scorer than 23 that he was last year. So there's a small hit. And I feel like the other small hit, you said it comes in the steals. I feel like he's probably a 2 steal a game guy, but to say he's 2.4, we don't see too many guys getting 2.4 in back-to-back years.
I mean, that's 2.4 was pretty absurd. In fact, in his last 25 games, he averaged over 3 steals a game.
Right. So we got to feel like that's more like 2. And so those couple little drops there drop him from 10th to 12th or 13th or 14th or 15th.
15th, you know, it's still an elite player, a guy you 100% want on your team, and a guy who's just killing it in quite a few categories, especially steals. I still will draft him if the price is right. I think I'll get him in probably half the leagues I'm in. But we'll see.
I feel like some of the people too they're out on him. Like he's not a sexy name yet.
No.
Right? He was a first-time All-Star. And I feel like guys like Jimmy Butler, Paul George, right? They're all kind of a little bit better known. Damian Lillard, Ben Simmons. I see Ben Simmons go over him a lot.
I've seen a lot of people on Ben Simmons.
And so I think that I might have a fair share of Victor Oladipo, just in the sense that he slips to like 17, 18, and I snag him.
Oh yeah, that'd be a pretty good pickup. One of the guys I really want to talk about on this team, I'm very interested in, is Miles Turner. Miles Turner was due kind of for a breakout season. He was a lot of people's breakout candidate of last year, and he really shit the bed. He obviously had a injury, so he was out, but he never really got it together. I don't know if you remember this though, Tyler. You probably do, because you do follow this stuff pretty closely. He got like a really incredibly severe concussion in like, what was it, like the first game of the season?
Yeah, it was early on. I won't swear to it being the first game, but it was very early in the season.
He didn't play in the second game of the season, so I'm gonna guess it was like right near the end, or maybe halfway. Actually, maybe like halfway through that game. And he didn't play until November, and even then he played like limited minutes, and there was something off with him. And I feel like there was something off with him for the rest of the season. Now you're seeing, and take this stuff with a grain of salt, because this is the time and the place for this kind of crap, where you're seeing a lot of like, oh, he's never been in better shape. He's doing yoga. He's looks really fit. He's been working on his 3, like all that stuff's coming out right now. But I've seen a lot of people touting Miles Turner as like, this guy's going to be really, really good next year. In the season before last, he finished 24th per game in 9 and in totals was 16th, because he played 81 games. So this was a guy who is, due to be a top 25 breakout player. Last year, per game, finished 57th, 69th in totals, only over 65 games, only playing 28 minutes a game. Tyler, which one of these is the real Miles Turner?
So I'll give you all a research project to do, and it won't take very long if you can just Google Miles Turner and go to his basketball reference page. Look at those per 36 stats. Okay, so this eliminates the minutes factor, right? And it's just per 36 minutes every season. Miles Turner was the exact same player he's always been last year. He just didn't play as many minutes. Now, the one big difference, or the one small difference, was he shot way more 3-pointers, and so therefore his field goal percentage went down, but his 3-point makes went up. Okay, so that was the one difference. And he made that trade-off, and we've seen a lot of guys make that trade-off in recent years. But
yeah, that's just the way the league is going to go.
He was, as far as everything else, he's pretty much the exact same player he's always been. So the question, I think, to me is, what minutes does Miles Turner get? We know what Miles Turner is per minute. How many minutes does Miles Turner play?
And they've just brought in Kyle Quinn. We talked about Sabonis getting more minutes. So Sabonis could play at the 5. Caliquin's going to play at the 5, but there's backup minutes to be had. But you're talking about a 22-year-old who allegedly should be slated as the second best player on this team, a guy they should be able to build around. I'm not sure why he wouldn't get 32 plus minutes a game.
And here's the other thing that goes in Miles Turner's favor, right? Some people might say, oh, well, Sabonis played well last year, and Sabonis showed that he's a better player than he was with the Thunder, and he should get more minutes. Miles Turner played, okay, Team USA didn't play this year. They just had a training camp because they didn't have any games. They didn't schedule any exhibitions. Miles Turner was part of that training camp.
Yeah, he's elite enough to be with Team USA.
Right. They're not inviting guys who are not really, really, really good players, right? They have enough.
Yeah, they didn't invite Steven Adams, but also Steven Adams is not American, so that's why they didn't invite him.
But Miles Turner got the nod over a lot of really good players.
Yeah, absolutely.
About. So I don't see why he doesn't get more minutes. I'm wary of picking him. I actually thought I would be on him a lot because I figured, he had a bad year and some people would be out on him. But the sites seem to have ranked him really high again.
I've seen a little bit of hit or miss here. I think the sites have him around a pretty solid value where people are seeing him on the list and going, oh yeah, Miles Turner's out here. But I have seen him slip past 50, past 60 even. And I would 100% have him on my team before the 50th pick. He's in my top 50.
Oh, he's definitely in my top 50 too.
Like, pretty easily, I think.
But if you tell me I got to pick him at like 35, which is where I saw him go the other day in the draft, I'm out on that. I think
that's a little early. Right. Let me ask you a few who would you rather's.
All right, I'm game.
All right, Miles Turner or Marc Gasol, your boy.
Oh, Marc Gasol.
That's pretty fair. All right, Miles Turner or Nikola Vujovic.
That's another guy I'm a big fan of.
Yeah. A guy people are out on as well because they're like, oh, Orlando's going to be a completely different team with Mo Bamba. It's like, why would Vujovic not get the same 29 minutes he got last year where he was like super efficient hitting threes and rebounding?
I actually think those two are really, really close. I'm going to go for Turner just in the sense that I think we could see maybe a little something extra from Turner. We know what Vucevic is. Yeah. Vucevic is he's not changing his spots. Plus, I'll say this about Vucevic. He seems to miss a couple weeks he does the Chris Paul. He seems to miss a couple weeks every year with like a random injury. Like, he broke his nose or he twisted his ankle or he fell down his stairs or he did whatever.
Also a world where Vujovic starts playing 26 minutes and then 24 minutes and the young guys start playing and maybe they're trying to trade Vujovic or maybe they send him home like they randomly sent home Tyreek Evans last year even though they didn't get fined for it.
If you believe the rumors, right, they've tried to trade Vucevic every year since they acquired him in whatever year that was.
I believe the rumors. That's probably 100% true. So I'd rather take a guy who they're trying to build the franchise at least part of the franchise around, and Turner, who could exceed, versus a guy who has the potential of almost maybe not even being played because the organization is such a crapshoot.
Fair.
Yeah. Oh, I got one more for you. Miles Turner or LaMarcus Aldridge.
Now that's hurtful right there.
It's a tough one. Two guys probably a little underrated this year.
Well, and Aldridge has the DeMar DeRozan, so that's kind of he was kind of the number one option last year, and now he's probably the number two option to DeMar.
We've seen what happens when LaMarcus is number two. He's still good, but he's not, he's not elite.
Right. So, man, that's kind of a case by case basis, and I'll say that for this reason. If I feel like I haven't really taken any shots yet, I might take a shot on Miles Turner being better. If you said you played the season 100 times, which player was better more often, it would probably be Aldridge, right? Like, he's probably a safer player, but I feel like Miles Turner has a much higher upside.
Yeah, I think I'd rather go with Turner for that upside and for the potential of a guy who gets 2 blocks a game.
I'm with you there. I just wish Turner
It's
would
close.
rebound. I wish Turner would rebound a little bit more too. I'll say that. Like, grab a couple more boards, man. Help me out.
Come on. Well, you got Thad Young out there just grabbing every single rebound
and stealing everything. I'm a big Thad Young fan. I guarantee I'll own some Thad Young this year.
We love Thad Young. 1.9. 1.7 steals a game for Thad Young last year. A quiet, almost 2 steals a game, along with 6 rebounds, 12 points, and a pretty good field goal percentage and a bad free throw percentage, but he only shoots 1.1 free throw a game. Like, this guy hides in every single draft.
He's a top 100 player, and sometimes you can get the guy with your last pick.
He's like a top 75 player, I think. Like, he deserves way more respect than he gets.
Yes.
Probably, maybe not top 75 player. That might be stretching it, but maybe not this
in
year.
29 minutes a game in Mark's rankings, he ranks 98th.
Okay.
And I don't really see any way he doesn't get 29 minutes a game.
Yeah, I see him getting more minutes than that. Do you want to talk about Bogdanovich? Do you want to talk about Darren Collison anymore? Corey Joseph? Any maybe some deep guys out there for you?
Well, okay, let's say this. Where are you taking Collison? We know what Collison is at this point.
We do know what Collison is at this point. He's very efficient. He's not, nothing he does is super outstanding. Assists are a little bit harder to come by these days, and he is decent at that. I mean, just because his ceiling is so low, I'm probably taking him if I need a guard in that 60 to 70 range. And that might be, maybe I'm taking him a little low, but I'm just a little bit more excited about guys with higher upside who are floating around that area. I might move him up a little bit if I was if I was doing a roto league, but maybe I'd rather take a swipe at Doncic in that range or Chris Dunn in that range versus old boring Darren Collison.
Oh, I definitely feel like we know exactly what he is.
Yes.
So, like, if you want upside, he's not the pick. But with those unsexy players, whatever you want to call them, right? We see guys going for Doncic and Jared Allen and Larry Nance and Lonzo Ball and
like,
then,
you don't have to take Darren Collison.
But here's my point. It gets to like
around.
It gets to like pick 90 and Darren Collison is just staring you in the grill.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, that's a really good value.
You're like, why am I not taking this guy? And then often for me, it's like, well, you know what? I just got one of the best steals of the draft, and then like 2 picks before me, the guy picks Darren Collison at like 102. And I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, right. So sometimes we can wait too long, but I just feel like he's going to be a bit of a steal. And I'm all for owning some Darren Collison this year.
You know what? He might go. He might go undervalued because everybody was looking at Oladipo.
Well, and here's the thing too. I feel like most of the time, even we saw this a little bit with Paul George, right? The Pacers players just don't. Other than Miles Turner's gotten some hype. But most of them just go a little bit below what they should to begin with. Like, not many guys watching the Pacers out there.
Nope. Not a lot of people in Indiana watching the Pacers either.
All right, so Bojan here, not Bogdan.
Bogdanovich.
So standard league player.
Yes. Standard league relevant. Yep. Yes.
Yeah, but see, for me, I think he is in my streaming more than my owning. Like, I think
he's a borderline own, borderline stream. So, like, if you suck at points, he's ownable. But if you don't need points or you're pretty decent at points, he's just streamable.
Well, and here's the thing, too. I feel like his upside's not very, very high. So, like, he's a last pick or a next to last pick. But at that point in a standard league, I kind of just want someone with upside who might be better than that.
And yeah, so, I'd rather take a shot on somebody, a flyer on someone with a much higher ceiling.
So that's why I would say he's more streamable than ownable, but he's really ownable. It's just I'd rather have the upside shot on I don't know, someone young.
quite a few of the mock drafts I've been in so far, I'm not even seeing him get drafted.
Right, which is good. That means in a deep league, I'll probably own him.
Yeah, you could definitely snag him in a deep league. That's a good snag in a deep league that you actually want to you actually want to make sure you're taking him in like the 11th round.
Yeah, right.
Which would be high in a standard league, but
he's going to produce.
You need those guys,
right? He's going to produce that value, and you might take the upside shot on OG Anunoby, and he might play 20 minutes a game, or I mean, that's just a random player.
Yeah,
don't quote me on that, but that's just the first player that came to mind.
That's fair. So yeah, in deeper leagues, take a look out for Bogdan, Tyler's least favorite of the Bogdanoviches.
And then obviously the only other guy to talk about. Well, we could talk about Sabonis if you want.
Nah, I think we talked about him a little.
But enough. I mean, Kyle O'Quinn, I feel like.
Oh yeah,
in a deep league, I'm gonna own a little bit of Kyle O'Quinn, but I don't know that he gets a lot of minutes because I don't think the Miles Turner Sabonis thing works as good as they hope it does. And so they'll play Sabonis some as the backup center, and that'll limit Kyle O'Quinn to way less minutes than we want. But
I'm always going to own Kyle O'Quinn in a deep league, 100%. It's Kyle O'Quinn.
Yeah, we saw some games last year, too, where in like 15 minutes he was producing stats that you're like, that is almost standard league relevant, man.
Yes, I mean, some of it was standard league relevant, and that's why you always got to own Kyle O'Quinn in a deep league. Just like out of nowhere, this guy he just does it.
So yeah, so he's a sexy deep league name, that's for certain.
I love old Kyle O'Quinn. Man, I think that is it for the Indiana Pacers here. I think has been some hype around, some like very like fringy hype around Aaron Holiday out there, but he's pretty buried behind all those other guards in there. So I think we're gonna wrap it up with our 30 teams in over 30 days for the Indiana Pacers. And if you guys are liking what you're hearing you want to hear more, you want to help support the show, please rate and review us on whatever you're listening this to. Or if you want some bonus content, some exclusive content, or do you want to join one of our listener leagues, check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. There you can subscribe, join a listener league, and get personal advice from me and Tyler before your draft comes up. And we're also going to be putting out exclusive content throughout the entire season. So if you really want to support the show, subscribe, patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. Tyler, what is your Twitter handle? Where can people find you?
Oh, you threw me off. You said it for the last 10 episodes. Now you got to throw me off.
I want you to say it once every 10 episodes, what your Twitter handle is.
All right. It is at Tyler P. Watts. So that's Tyler with 1 T and Watts with 2.
There you go. And you can find me at Watch the Boxes. If you got feedback for the show, you got questions about the Pacers, or you want to hear something specific before the season starts, feel free to reach out to us, and we will put that content on the show. We are very receptive. We want to give you listeners what you want to hear because this is really all for you guys. So we appreciate you listening. And we will catch you next time on our next 30 and over 30. Thanks, everybody.